So we're going to do a 200T handle removal and gas tank removal. So first thing you want to do, drain the tank and take your cap off. So we're going to get started on taking the carburetor out. Let's make sure we can see what's going on here. So these are 8mm. Yeah, 8mm. Down in here, we're going to want to push down our fuel line. Like I said, drain it, because otherwise fuel is going to just dump out of your line from pressure built up. And I like to use this little pick right here to kind of help grab stuff. Be careful not to accidentally poke any of your lines. Let's take the choke cable off. I forgot about this little dealio right here. Not every saw has the little flap right here, but mine does. Right, this one's a little bit of a pain to kind of get out because, oh, that wasn't so bad. So that's removing the carburetor. Put that somewhere clean. So there's taking the carb off. So now we're going to work on taking the handle off. You don't have to take the starter cover off, but I find it's a little easier. So let's go ahead and take that off. So when you take these off, I like to leave them where they go, because one side goes into magnesium and the other side goes into plastic. This side's plastic, this side's magnesium. Don't mix them up. So now we're going to get started on the handle removal. And it helps to have a little rag, kind of keep your hands clean when you start working around in there. So let's see, we got a good visual here. I'm kind of doing this left-handed a little bit. It's a little bit of a pain. So you don't need to worry about this screw shouldn't really even be there. But don't worry about any of these screws. That's just for the internals of the handle, and that's a whole different ballpark. So let's go ahead and loosen the AV mount. And then down in here, where these two ports are, there's two screws. That's also the AV mount. Actually, you probably don't even have to take this one out. It's been a minute. Go ahead and just put that back in there. We'll leave that one alone. We only need to take these two off. Yeah, buddy? It is a little easier if you take this off. I just hate doing it. What's up, Bubby? Huh? Oh, yeah? Okay, buddy. Like I said, it is easier if you take that off. I just hate doing it. So we loosen those up. Next, we have this mount right here. This is your other AV mount. Careful not to rip on this too hard. If you start undoing this and this starts moving, just try and grab that with something, because they will rip. And right here, you got your third AV mount. Where'd that go? I'll set that off to the side. So before we pull the handle apart, you want to come in here, just put your finger in there, pull out that little ring, don't lose it, and then this is where that little pick comes in handy. So you're going to want to take this off right here. You just kind of work it around, just be gentle. Really kind of a bitch trying to do this sideways. I just don't have a camera angle in the other way. There we go. So next, this is your intake boot right here, right? It's kind of holding everything in there. Oh, I guess this one's not, it's just attached right here. There we go. There we go, that's loose, that's loose. So I just like to reach in there with my fingers, hopefully we can see, and just kind of fold it in a little bit. Just be really careful with it. There we go. Now let's go ahead and feed out our vent line. Now what's holding it is the impulse line right here. Reach in there with your hand. Do we see that? Right there. And just kind of give it a couple little wiggles. Now we got wire right here, earth wire I believe it is. We're going to want to kind of doing this all backwards. Disconnect that, and there is our handle. Alright, well, let's take a look at this. So we have our fuel line, our vent on 200Ts, you won't, or not 200, 020s, you won't have this vent line here. It'll just be the single fuel line. We got our intake boot and our impulse line. So now to take all this apart, which can be a little bit of a pain when you leave the muffler on, but I'm going to leave the muffler on because I hate taking it off if I don't have to. So we're going to start with, there it is, these two top ones right here. Those to the side, and then on the bottom we got two more right here. yet. Come on, get out of there. There we go. Set those to the side. So now the whole gas tank is unbolted, but you're not going to be able to get it out yet because of the impulse line. So take a flathead and just kind of real gingerly work that up. Just kind of pop it up a little bit. Careful when you reinstall it, this end goes on the top. So now our intake boot is free. So I'm trying to salvage this intake boot, so we need to be really careful. This is when tiny little flathead comes in handy. You just kind of come in underneath it and use the sides. Just kind of pry it up a little bit. Careful not to scratch anything. Just real gingerly pull that off. There's our intake boot. So you want to give this an inspection before you do anything else. Well, before you reinstall it anyway.
Daddy.
What's up, guys?
I love you.
I love you too.
Uh-huh.
GoPro, stop recording. Alright, let's see, where were we? My dog peed in the kitchen. I had to deal with that. That's right. Okay. So now that we're here, this is where you gotta give a little bit of muscle to it because we're leaving the exhaust or the muffler on there. Just kind of give it a few pops. And then you want to feed your impulse line down a little way so we don't tear it. There we go. Pull that off. And there's the gas tank. So if you're going to replace the impulse line, also, I do recommend sometimes you can throw some, like a paper towel or something in here. Just kind of shove it in so you don't get debris in there. I'm working on this, so I'm not too concerned about it right now. But if you're going to replace the impulse line, this is, I think it's 4 inches exactly. And yeah, you just pull it off right here, put it back in. So now that we're down to cylinder and everything, it is easier if you take the muffler off to do this job, but I find it's kind of a pain in the ass to put the muffler back on, and I have no reason to take it off right now, so I'm just kind of working around it. So assembly is reverse of disassembly, but we're going to go ahead and do it. So when you're putting this back on with the impulse line, be careful not to damage the impulse line. And we just want to shove this back in the hole a little bit. If I can get it in there, might have to spit on it. Come on. Dirty bitch. Usually it goes in a little easier than that. There we go. You just want to slide it up over the muffler here. Get it up in there. We want to grab the impulse line. Don't use pliers because you can puncture the impulse line. It's pretty easy to tear. Pull that through. Now our gas tank's back on there. So, gotta get it lined up. And let's go ahead and put one screw in, two screws in, and then you just want to send them home. There we go. There she is.
Daddy,
What's up, big man?
I reordered the barrel.
You want a what?
Dad,
Yeah.
when we did the barrel, we did the barrel, Dad.
What, bub?
We did the barrel.
No, you can't go in the backyard right now. It is cold and it is snowy.
I didn't want to pay sure.
I didn't say sure.
I didn't want to pay.
I asked you what you said. Oh. Son of a bitch. Alright, I'll just have to fix that real quick. I overlapped it. So we'll just fix that real quick before I forget about it. Alright. Give that a little, make sure they're in. Alright, well, we have successfully reinstalled the gas tank. Let's clean our hands off a little bit, and we're going to reinstall the intake boot. So, there's a little tab right up there. There's a little tab right there. You just want to line those up. Get it on there. There's the intake boot. And this is where this can be kind of tricky a little bit. Snug that in there. I like to take, kind of just give it a little push. Want to get that nice and snug. There's the intake boot. So, gas tanks reassembled, impulse line through, intake boot installed. Now we're going to put the handle on. So before we do that, this is a little trick I use. I got some old shoestring right here. Just tie a little slip knot and put it on there. Right? You tracking? And then you want to go through this hole where the intake boot feeds through. And before we get too carried away, we want to install the impulse line. Actually, let's go ahead and get this back on there first, since that could be kind of a bitch. Hey, baby. Yeah. Oh no, it's fine. So on a brand new impulse line, it can be a little tight to feed in to the hole there. So that's why I leave a lot of slack. That way you can kind of work it in. Don't use pliers because you will rip it. So after we do that, feed your fuel line through, feed your vent through. Okay. Now we get to here. This is where this little trick comes in handy. Right? You start working that around a little bit. Gentle tugs. We're not ripping on it because we will rip the intake boot. And there's the intake boot. Right? So now we get to here. We've got our two little screws. This is where it's a little easier. Not sure what happened there. GoPro turned off. We're just gonna get that through there, through the wire. Can we see that in the GoPro? Little wire in there. There we go. Let's make sure I have that stock. I didn't need to take that off. I don't know what I was thinking. This AV mount right here. And AV mount right here. What did I do with the screw? Did it fall out? Did I leave it in there? Son of a bitch. I seem to have lost my AV mount screw. I think I left it in there. So GoPro, stop recording. Alright, I found it. So, you grab it. Oh, let's use this one. So, if your AV mount is worn out, when you start turning this is going to move. Super easy to replace, by the way. Alright, now our handle is installed, so now we're going to install the carburetor. So, for that little ring, press that right in there. And we got the spacer. Snugged right in there. There's a lot of gunk. Usually I clean this off first, but for the sake of video, this is fine. So, install it just a little bit. Oh, yeah. So now we want to come in here with this little pick. Don't have a pick, you can use whatever tool works best for you. I think this works best for me. And then you just connect to the throttle cable there. Give it a little push down. And go ahead and seat it. And then your fuel line, I just like to press it down, get it right up in there. And then use the back side of a screwdriver. So That way I don't puncture the fuel line. I just kind of put it up in there. Hopefully we can see that. So backside of a screwdriver, and just push it right up in there. Can you see that? I hope so. Put your vent back in place, and now we got the choke cable. Just install that. Double check. Looks like it's all there. And then you got your little carb vent right there. Make sure that gets through the hole. Hand snug, air filter, and then the cover. If you have that, put that back on there. Put the rest of it together. So it was a little awkward because I was doing it left-handed most of the time, and usually I'm working this side. But hopefully that helps. That's how I replace the handle or fuel tank on a 200T. So there we go.